2 words of each other.
Right, the pendulum has swung.
We'll come to order. Stand for the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. I'm going to start with the roll call. Vicki?
Okay, Jim Biggs,
Here.
Mike Brickner,
Here.
Eric Wagner,
Here.
Ruth Vance. Here. And Rebecca Tomerlin. Here. 5 present.
Entertain a motion to approve the April 18th minutes. Discussion?
We need a second before we can discuss.
No,
I just
go-
have some
go ahead.
corrections.
Go ahead.
Okay, well, I'm trying not to be picky, but I don't know if you need to make these corrections or not. But when I was reading through them, I see at the very top, it says voting members present, and then it said citizen members present, but the citizens vote too, so I just didn't want that to be ambiguous in case somebody's looking at it in the future. And then over on page 2, the second place where it mentions Coffee Creek and it says watershed. I mean, really what that is lost revenues, at least on our title page, and that's what they're seeking. Then further down the page, it says Center of Workforce, and then it should say Innovation. That's the name of that group. And then on page 3, where the Mac Foundation is, there's 2 A's in there. It should be MAAC. Then that same problem is on page 4 with MAC. Has to have 2 A's down under public comment. And then I wondered with the language on page 4, where you've got that paragraph of text that starts with Vicki Urbanik. Down near the bottom, 3rd line from the bottom of it, says Vicki will contact the applicants that were not moved on tonight. And I wonder if you want to change moved on to advanced, because moved on kind of sounds just like somebody made a motion about them. Well, we don't know what the motion was, but I think you're trying to say that they didn't advance to the next stage. So I would recommend substituting the word advanced for moved on. And those are all the changes I would suggest.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes with those suggested changes.
So moved.
You have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Okay. This is the start of our presentations, and just let me very quickly explain to our presenters that you will get 15 minutes from the time that you start speaking to make your presentation, and then there's a 15 minutes that follows immediately with questions and answers from our board to you. So first up is the Community Theater Guild.
Commissioner, just a reminder, I will give people a reminder at 5 minutes.
Yes, Kurt will give you a reminder when you got 5 minutes left. And this time of day he's cantankerous, so don't.
So would you prefer that I sit down here and speak into the
Whatever you're more comfortable with.
Yes, in fact, let's try.
You turn those around. That don't make much sense to poke that way, do they?
No, they don't. I will sit down, just catch my breath.
Can you just introduce yourself?
I sure will. My name is Lisa Formosa Parmigiano, and I am with Community Theater Guild, which is more commonly known as Chicago Street Theater.
Lisa, could you spell your last name, please, for us?
Absolutely. FORMOSA PARMIGIANO.
So that's the benefit of Vicki, who's doing the minutes. And if Ruth finds that, she misspelled that.
Actually, Deb's doing the minutes.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
That's okay. So I'm with Chicago Street Theater, and I am the Director of Education the artistic consultant and the grant coordinator there. As is the case with most volunteer organizations, we have 2 staff members, we are part-time, and we wear many hats. Chicago Street Theater was formed in 1955. We were incorporated in 1957, and we've been a part of this community for over 66 years. I have been a part of the organization since 2008, for the past 14 years. I believe that we explained clearly in our application the loss and harm due to the pandemic. We were shuttered from March of 2020 to April of 2021, and when we were able to open, we could only seat to 1/3 of our capacity. And then later this year, we were also shuttered for another month and a half. Our education program, which is very vibrant, we have a full year semester in the fall and spring, and we have a summer camp program as well. We were within 2 weeks of the state mandated shelter in place. We moved online to Zoom, which was a challenge with kindergartners taking theater classes on Zoom, but we did that. And until the summer of 2021, we were only able to hold 50% capacity with masks. Instead of T-shirts, we gave all students masks. That's at Chicago Street Theater. We distanced. We had special filtration systems set up, et cetera. We did receive, we took out 2 payroll protection program loans. One was in 2020 for $14,600. The other was in 2021 for $14,662. Both were forgiven. I'd like to take a moment now to just talk about the importance of the arts. They're a fundamental component of a healthy community. The arts strengthen these communities socially, educationally, economically, benefits that persist even during these difficult social and economic times. I have a handout to supplement that comes from Americans for the Arts, and it's 10 reasons to support the arts. The importance of the arts in particular that I would like to highlight, the most recent statistics that Americans for the Arts have, unfortunately for Porter County, is from 2017, and they haven't been able to do a new one. But at that time, in 2017, Porter County was home to 272 arts-related businesses that employed over 952 people. Specific numbers also show that children who study the arts are 4 times more likely to be recognized for academic achievement, to be elected to a class office, to participate in a math or science fair, to win an award for school attendance, and to win an award for writing an essay or a poem. Arts drive tourism and revenue to local businesses. They spark creative and innovation and industries, and they have a social impact. With that in mind, I would like to say, I'd like to hand this out to you, and I can answer any questions that you have. I believe that our presentation on paper did answer that. Chicago Street Theater, we've been around for 67 years, and we haven't stopped. It was quite challenging, but we're here, we're persistent, dedicated, and we would like to be able to continue.
That concludes your presentation?
It does.
Okay. You want to pass that out real
I
quick?
do. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Lisa, I'll start out by asking a couple of questions. And
Yes.
the first is, how do you plan on spending these funds if they were granted to you?
Well, during the past 2 years, as I mentioned in our application, unfortunately, our building went through, we lost our 75-year-old boiler, so that was over a $40,000 expense. The horrible storm caused our roof to accumulate with ice, which knocked all the gutters off of our building. That was another $7,000 or $8,000 worth of work. We were able to, thankfully, to financial planning and a fiscally conscious board to be able to pull from our Fidelity Fund to cover the expenses for that. Because of that,
Including the
though-
boiler?
Including the boiler. We went into over $50,000 of our reserve fund. Because of that, what we would like to use the funds for is to compensate for over 90-some thousand dollars that we lost in revenue based on box office and our education program. In a fully operating year, our box office takes in between 120 to 140,000, and our education program takes in between $40,000 and $45,000, which covers 90% of our activity. So because we lost so much with the boiler going out, and then that causing the heat to stop, and then the roof took, it just one thing snowballed after another. There was also a great deal of flooding, so we had a lot of indoor repair. All of that has been done, and we have invested in that, but it has set us back quite a bit. And we also lost a staff member, not due to, she resigned. She didn't want to continue. And so the board has been very hesitant to bring on anybody else on staff, and it's been trying on a lot of the volunteers. So what we're hoping some of the assistants can do is get us back on our feet, help us maybe bring on another part-time employee, maybe 2 part-time employees with marketing and development. We lost them completely.
Okay, so I just want, so the board is clear, everybody's clear on this. You've had some structural issues with the facility
Correct.
that you operate out of.
Yes,
And those may or may not had gone on during the actual pandemic. However, you lost revenue during the pandemic, and you took reserve funds to address those structural issues, and you want to replenish those reserve funds to do some other things with it.
correct.
And aren't there right now.
That's correct, yes.
And because I'm dubious over whether you can, whether the boiler and the roof and all that stuff that happened to you happened because of COVID. You have to prove that your harm was caused by the pandemic. But you have shown us other harms that were caused by the pandemic, like your loss in revenues and all that kind of thing. So
Right.
the money that you're asking for,
Is primarily, to compensate the loss of
your
revenue.
revenue and your box office and your classes you give and that kind of thing.
Right, because
I
we,
just want to separate those two.
yes, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to at all insinuate. We were very responsible and took care of ourselves. That had nothing to do with the pandemic. We were closed for a year, though, so we did lose all the revenue from the box office for a year and 50% of it from the education program.
Have you received any type of federal assistance associated to COVID or the pandemic?
We did take out 2 Paycheck Protection Program loans, one in 2020 and one in 2021. We did receive from Partners Midwest Arts Organization a $3,000 grant. Other than that,
But they're not the federal government.
they are not the federal government. The only thing we ever received from the federal government was the Paycheck Protection Program loans. In 2020, it was for $14,600, and in '21, it was for $14,662.
So we're clear on that. All that did was to substitute the loss of revenue that you had coming in to pay those positions.
Correct, because both of us stayed employed during that entire time, yes.
But it did not do anything, did not address the loss at the box office.
It did not address any other loss,
Okay.
correct.
Okay. One last question. If we were to offer you less, would you accept it?
We would gratefully accept anything we were offered.
Kind of a silly question, but I got to ask it. Any of the board members have any other additional questions? And you're located in Chesterton, correct?
No, we're right on Chicago Street,
Oh, okay.
right in Valpo, walking distance.
Okay. And you're not, you get no assistance from local government for operations.
No, we do not. We function on 90% of our box office. We have about 8 to 9% that is supplemented by local and state grants, but that's it.
Okay. You say local grants, you don't mean from county government?
No, I mean the Gracious Anderson Foundation,
Okay.
I mean Illinois Arts Council.
Okay.
That's it. Porter County Community Foundation, et cetera.
Okay. And you've been in operation for how many years?
Almost 67.
Oh, a long time.
I just want to say thank you for putting the numbers on here and make it nice and clear. It makes it very obvious the revenue that was lost and that the negative impact to COVID, so thank you.
Thank you.
And I think your organization is to be commended for being, financially astute and having planned for a rainy day, and because you would be in a lot worse position today had you not done that years ago and invested, so, yeah.
We would be closed, yes.
Good job.
Thank you. They had a lot of foresight, and we try to remain fiscally conscious as well. Thank you.
You have any other questions you'd like to ask us?
No, I don't. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
We all appreciate it.
Our next presenter is Dressed for School. Just hearing that sends chills up my back of my neck.
No, we're good. All right, let me get set up here. Okay.
I have some notes on my phone, so bear
That's
with
okay.
me. My name is Lisa Hauser. I am the co-founder and the volunteer executive director of Dressed for School. At Dressed for School, we're a nonprofit, fairly new. We opened our doors in 2019. We provide clothing, new clothing, at no cost to families in need or families in crisis throughout Porter County. We believe that children build self-esteem from selecting their own clothing and from taking ownership of the clothing that they wear. Clothes are important. So research shows that students who wear clean, appropriate, well-fitting clothing perform better academically in school, they feel more confident, and they fit in better socially with their peers. So at Dress for School, each student is allowed, that qualifies, is allowed to come to see us and shop with us in our store. They are allowed to visit us twice per school year, once in the fall, once in the spring. And they are allowed to select 4 bottom pieces, 5 top pieces, 5 pair of underwear, 5 pair of socks, and 1 pair of new gym shoes each trip. In the fall last year, we also provided coats for students who needed coats, and all the girls are allowed to select 1 bra if they need it. So we see students in a variety of ways. We are located in the Vale Building, which is generously donated by Valparaiso Community School System to us. The Vale Building, for those of you who don't know, is the former Hayes Leonard Elementary School. It is now the Valpo Alternative Learning Experience. So it is the alternative learning school in one wing, and we occupy 2 classrooms in the back of the building that we have renovated, outfitted. We have a boys' room and a girls' room. They are combined. We look like a traditional retail store, except there is no money that is exchanged. Everything is free of charge. We depend on social workers, school teachers, school administrators to recommend students to us, and students can visit us in one of 2 ways. They can either come on a school bus that is provided by their school districts, so we get school buses from the Valparaiso Community Schools, and we also get school buses from Portage Township Schools. They send a school bus per elementary school. They come to us during the day on a regularly scheduled field trip, and we pair them one-on-one with our personal shoppers who make sure that each student selects pieces that fit them properly. We have fitting rooms in our store. We have them try them on, so they make sure that they get the correct amount of items. They make sure that their shoes are fitting, and they make sure that the students feel special and unique. So that is one way the students can come to us. The second way that students can come to us is that they can make a private appointment with their parents. And they can come after school hours or on a weekend, and we set those appointments up. Again, they are paired with a shopper. They can select their wardrobe with their parents, and a lot of parents feel that that's a great way for them to interact with their children. A lot of the kids that we see don't normally get to shop. So that is what we do. We opened our doors, like I said, in 2019. We did a fall distribution. We basically saw children from Valparaiso Community Schools. We were planning in 2020 to expand our reach and to include other school districts in Porter County. In March of 2020 was when the schools and COVID hit and the schools decided to shut down. So we had seen several families from East Porter School District, Porter Township School District. They had come to us on private appointments. Once the school shut their doors, we were not allowed to have students in our store. So we called around to all of the families that we had seen in the fall, and we took orders, and we prepared bags of clothing for each student according to what their parents told us their preferences were, by color, by style, by size, all of that. And then their parents would drive through, and we would place those items in a car. That way we had a contactless shopping experience for them. In the summer of 2020, the Vail School was closed completely and nobody was allowed in. I don't exactly know what happened there, but they developed a mold issue because of the airflow was cut off from the school, so the air conditioning was shut down. We were contacted in the summer of 2020 by the school administrator, the principal, Mike Bendixson, who said, I think you need to get into your store and I think you need to check out your clothing because we have a mold issue. When we entered our store, sure enough, there was a mold issue, and we had several items of clothing that had mold growing on them. So because the store is carpeted, the humidity in the school building, the mold kind of grew from the floor up. So anything that was hanging even near the ground, mostly jeans, some of the shoes that we had gotten mold on them. So we lost several items of clothing. We lost several pairs of shoes. We decided we needed to remove all the clothing from the school, and they wanted us to because they were going to go through and completely clean the school building. So we moved all of our clothing out to a location on Beach Street. It was an empty space there that was donated to us, and we moved all of our clothing there. We had to launder I would say about half of the clothing that had visible mold on it, we laundered professionally. The other half of the clothing, we had a professional person come in and they sprayed for mold remediation the rest of the clothing that we had. So those were some of the physical losses that we experienced. We also had to purchase 2 dehumidifiers and a lot of those dry rid bags that soak up humidity in an area, just to get all of the humidity out of our clothing. We completed our fall distribution in 2020 at the new location, and in February of 2021, we moved back into the school. We switched areas. We switched to the back of the building, and that is where we are still located now. That completes my presentation.
Thank you.
Yes.
Question.
Sure.
At the time that the the air conditioning
Yeah.
shut off, went off, whatever
Yes.
whatever the case may be. Did that have anything to do with the pandemic?
Well, yeah, they closed the building down. So up until that point, we were allowed in the building. We were able to monitor what was going on in our store. And I'm sure they are in the building, throughout the summer. I think they have a secretary that works. I think the school administrator is in there. Certainly, the maintenance crew is in there all summer long. So I think when COVID hit and the building shut down, nobody was monitoring that building any longer from about June on. And we were contacted in late summer saying, we were in the building and you need to get in there and check out what's going on in your room.
And where do you receive your clothing from? Just donations?
So our funding, we receive it in a variety of ways. So part of our funding comes from writing for grants. We are a completely volunteer organization, so we have no payroll. We also do a private fundraising, just individual charitable contributions, grant writing. We also accept new clothing, tags attached, and we do several clothing drives per year.
But it sounds, for the most part, the clothing that you lost was new clothing.
Oh, it's all new. All of our clothing is brand new.
Okay, so it's not handed
No,
down.
we don't do any used clothing in our store.
So can you quantify for us the dollar amount you lost? Was any of the clothing, did you have to throw it out, or are your costs all in the remediation and cleaning?
So I would say, honestly, it's hard to specify which items and what they cost individually because we have such a great amount of clothing. So I would estimate that we lost, probably thrown away, 35 to 45 pairs of bottoms, pants, jeans. And the only thing I can do is give you like our average price point. So for a pair of bottoms, jeans, I would say we could get them for like $10.50 a pair.
And what's your request again, your amount?
We requested $10,000. Our biggest loss was our shoes because those are our biggest cost per item. So our shoes cost us about $25 per pair of shoes.
How many pairs of shoes did you?
I would say we lost about 10, basically. The problem with shoes are that you can't clean them, really. So that it was part of the loss. And then the other part was the purchasing of the humidifier, the dehumidifiers, the cleaning, and the spraying of the clothing. So honestly, I would say probably we lost $2,000 in clothing and in spraying for the clothing and things like that. The other $8,000 that we were requesting was just to purchase new clothing for the store. We saw an uptick in clients who needed our services due to the pandemic. A lot of families, loss of income, they had an illness in the family, whether it was COVID or something else, just more in crisis, more families needing our services. The other big item that we haven't really talked about yet is we lost a lot of the private donations that we receive. We saw a 55% decrease in our donations in 2020, just because everything that was going on. We couldn't do any fundraising, we couldn't do any clothing drives where we accepted clothing from outside individuals or sources.
Okay, I want to take you back a step here.
Okay.
Could you give us what the cost was for the 2 dehumidifiers?
They were $189 a piece.
How many students, I'm sorry.
And whatever other expenses, you said something about the bags to soak up humidity or whatever.
Yeah, I don't even have receipts. I mean,
See, that's the thing, we need to try to put a dollar figure.
you need a
on
dollar
it.
figure on everything, right?
That's what we want.
Right, so I don't have those receipts, unfortunately. I can give you the other things that I have. They're shown on our treasurer's report and things like that.
Well, and the other thing, you said donations were down by a certain percent, but could you put a dollar figure on that? Like how?
Well, we went from, in 2019, we raised over $150,000 to, in 2020, we only raised about $60,000.
I was just going to ask, I commend what you and your volunteers do with this program. I think it's very beneficial to a lot of kids. I was going to ask about how many kids or students take advantage of this program in Porter County.
So right now in Porter County, in our fall distribution, I think we saw between 450 to 500 students.
Are
this year.
Where are those students coming from? Do you know that?
Most of the students are coming from Valparaiso Community Schools and Portage Township Schools. We get a handful of kids from Union Township. We see a lot of kids from the Boone Grove area. Not that many from East Porter County, but some from, each school district sends us maybe, 3 to 5 out there. And we have a handful that are coming from Chesterton. We have yet to really move into the Chesterton schools, Duneland schools, so that's why they're not sending buses to us yet.
Have you received any funds from the federal government, pandemic funds at all?
So we did not apply for any PPP funds because we have no payroll. We applied to the City Council of Valparaiso, and we received an approval for $25,000. However, we haven't received it yet.
And how are you planning on spending that?
Again, that will be mostly for, it will be all for clothing and shoes.
So the city's giving you $25,000?
They have pledged that to us.
That's different, though, than the VIBE grant they had for small businesses, correct? This is.
Yeah, that has nothing to do with that.
Okay,
Right.
so different grant.
That was their ARPA funds.
Yeah, okay. So just to, we have to see the negative impact. From what I'm
Absolutely.
seeing is, of course, the mold thing.
Yes.
Which, we definitely showed there. And then, of course, the loss of the donations.
Right.
And then the increased need from the community.
Correct.
And you can, is that something you can quantify, how many more children are needing it now versus even 2019, just some of those
It's really hard to
numbers?
say because we were in our first year in 2019.
Yeah, I
So we
figured.
didn't really have any benchmarks yet.
But at least you can show what the negative impact is, and then, of course, your plans for the
Going
money
forward.
would be go directly to serve those students that there's the increase.
Absolutely,
Okay.
yes.
So I just want to be clear on this.
Sure.
Your application with us.
Yes.
Is to make up for the lost revenue created by the pandemic and the damage to the clothing.
The damage to the clothing.
You say it's roughly
Correct.
$2,000.
Right,
And then, not revenue, but donations.
yes. Yeah.
Now, what was your-
That's what, did you see the confusion in my face? That's what that was from.
But I have a question.
Sure.
You received $25,000 of ARP money from the city of Valparaiso. Curious, what was your application, what was the purpose of the application? I mean, what did you say you were going to use that money for?
Honestly, I did not fill out that application. My co-founder, Julie Douglas, filled that one out. So I am not exactly sure
Okay.
the exact details of that, but I am sure it was for clothing and shoes.
Okay. Does the board have any other questions? Do you have a question or two for us, or?
No, I don't, but I'd just like to say thank you for giving us this opportunity. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you. Our next presenter is Opportunity Enterprises. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you.
start whenever you're ready.
Good evening. My name is Neil Samahan, and I'm the CEO of Opportunity Enterprises. First, I'd like to thank the county for the opportunity given to non-for-profits to request assistance from the recovery funds, and also to thank all of you for volunteering your time. I know this process is time-consuming and I'm sure difficult. There's a lot of good non-for-profits in this community. Our request can be divided into two categories. The first is an investment in our operations, and the second is a capital investment. OE has served those with disabilities in Porter County for nearly 55 years. Our reputation is strong, and we're considered to be a premier provider of services, striving to make the lives of those we serve most fulfilled while providing dignity and independence, things that we all deserve. OE focuses its resources on creating programs to ensure there are opportunities to meet these goals. Next slide, please. Many of our services are essential. Shortly after the onset of the crisis, the governor declared organizations such as OE as healthcare providers, recognizing that our staff was essential in providing care to individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. As an example, our residential division is responsible for caring for men and women 24 hours a day in their home. We couldn't temporarily shut down, we couldn't pause services, even if the outbreaks were significant, and we had significant outbreaks for sure. Our staff rallied and understood that we couldn't stop serving no matter what. The inability to serve was never an option. We needed to be there for these individuals with disabilities, some who no longer have family able to care for them. Quoting Chairman Galagos of the National Council on Disability, the coronavirus pandemic was disproportionately, or has disproportionately impacted people with disabilities, not because the virus targets disability, but because long-standing shortcomings in numerous systems predictably left us vulnerable. Next slide, please. To say these past 2 years hit us hard is an understatement. For those of you that don't know, I became CEO just a handful of months before the pandemic hit. I was just getting my feet wet. As a father of a child, though, with a disability, I knew what this agency meant to families. As an individual experienced in running a business, I knew that this would be an existential crisis. We know that the stakes are high coming out of this pandemic, and we are in another season where we must adapt. We must evolve to meet the needs of those who count on us. Again, if not us, then who? These past 2 years, OE's service revenue declined by $2.7 million. Total expenses increased during that same period by $1.5 million. We continued every day to care for our clients in residential settings, and in certain circumstances paid our frontline workers hero pay. We did cease serving clients in our day program settings for a while, which decreased our expected revenue. As you can imagine, these sudden financial impacts were extremely consequential to our agency. We continued to fundraise, certainly during the pandemic, via phone solicitations, emails, and virtual events. We applied for and received state and federal supports that assisted during this crisis. We were able to obtain such funding because there were advocates at the state level recognizing the challenges that disability service providers were faced with and the negative impact that closing of disability service providers would have in each community. This was great, but still a Band-Aid, not a long-term solution. The reality is that we are still experiencing a decrease in programmatic revenue due to a lower census. Some folks have not yet decided to return, yet we are experiencing increased staffing expenses. If you're not aware, most of the services that we provide, the clients receive state waiver funding to pay for these services. The good part of that is that those we serve don't have any out-of-pocket expenses to receive our services. This then gives access to our services regardless of demographic. Race, gender, income, everyone is served the same. The unfortunate part of this is that our rates are determined through the state Medicaid waiver program. We do not have pricing power. As expenses increase, such as cost of labor, we can't simply increase our prices. I know that as a CEO of this organization, it is incumbent upon us to adapt, evolve, innovate, which is exactly what we are doing to respond to this pandemic. After our initial response of ensuring that our clients were safe in their homes, my team recognized that things would need to be different coming out of this pandemic. We didn't know how, but we knew that we couldn't wait to take action. So we began assessing and planning. We created new divisions with different business models that will help diversify OE's funding streams, allowing us to increase our sustainability and address the most significant issues in our community. Our business is people. We serve with people. For the 25 years prior to coming to OE, I led a family-owned business. Instilled upon me early on in my time there by the owner was the notion that it is both a privilege and a responsibility to have the opportunity to employ people. You may not realize this, but serving individuals with disabilities has Opportunity Enterprises employing 360 people. And by doing so, we inject over $12 million into this local economy. I believe it is a responsibility having them rely upon us to provide a setting where they give of their talents and look upon us to operate a sustainable business and provide them the ability to make a living, receive insurance and benefits so they can support themselves and their family. It is a privilege to be in the position I am in, and that I and this agency have a responsibility to not just those that we serve, but those who so graciously and passionately do what they do in service of others. Again, OE has to, will, and is evolving. Why? Because we must for our clients, their families, and those that we employ. Today, we are asking for a $1.5 million donation in operations and as an investment in our future. Funds will be used to offset a net loss in service revenue of just over $500,000 and invest $1 million in innovative, sustainable programming that was developed in direct response to the post-COVID environment. I'll share a bit of these new initiatives with you. I think we can all agree most employers are faced with a workforce crisis. We have created programs to address both sides of this crisis. Next slide, please. VTech prepares young adults with disabilities looking to enter the workforce by training them and giving them the vocational tools needed to be ready for community employment. Next slide. We also partner with 11 Porter County high schools serving 150 youth who have an IEP or custom education plans to prepare them for the transition from school to the workforce. Next slide, please. As we are preparing men and women with disabilities, it's also time to focus on employers to make sure that they are looking for new ways to expand their workforce and are trained to ensure inclusive hiring practices and work environments. I recently had an opportunity to speak at an international conference, and there was a high interest in the topic of hiring individuals with disabilities. And that industry now is adding that to their workforce development initiative. We have the knowledge here in Porter County to impact our nation on inclusive workplaces. This past year, we also added electronic recycling to the list of services we provide through Secure Shred, our paper shredding business. Next slide, please. As we assessed what we were doing at our Lake Eliza property, which I'll mention more shortly, we saw an opportunity to take another innovative step to diversify our revenue stream. And we are so excited to offer truly inclusive camps. The camps are for children with and without disabilities, enjoying the same activities together. We are thrilled to offer these camp experiences to a broader population now. This new program now serves our clients at a greater level and is a program that is available to all county residents, again, with or without a disability. So the investment of $1.5 million will be used to replace lost revenue, invest in innovative programming that was developed in response to the post-COVID environment, and these investments would be for costs incurred in 2021 and projected through 2024. Each year, we fundraise for unrestricted general operating funds that can help offset the cost of the initiatives outlined. So far in this current fiscal year, we have raised $700,000, and our goal is to do that again in the upcoming year to be used alongside the dollars we are asking from the county. The second part of our request is for a transformational respite center. Next slide, please. The term respite and how it applies to disability service providers means that it provides temporary care to those with disabilities for 4 hours and up to 2 weeks. The service is designed with primary caregivers in mind. In Indiana, funding for an individual to assist them to move out on their own unless there are certain circumstances isn't available until the primary caregiver is 80 years old.
5 minutes remaining.
Imagine that, caring for a child with a disability until you are 80. Primary caregivers experience depression at twice the rate of the general population. We know that as parents, we tend to put our children's needs before our own. If you're a parent of a child with a disability, their needs can potentially be quite demanding. Next slide, please. These moms, dads, siblings, and other caregivers need a break. They need time to do the things most of us take for granted: get a haircut, see a movie, go to the grocery store, just take time to care for themselves. During this pandemic, the need for respite has become even more evident. Many individuals with pre-existing conditions are avoiding large group settings and spending more time at home. This can be challenging for caregivers, as they may now be providing care 24 hours a day without relief. Some of their loved ones may also become more challenging to care for since they are off their daily routine or don't quite understand why they can't go certain places. We need to ensure that support is available to the caregivers. It is essential for their mental health and their well-being. The other priority of OE's respite services is what it provides to those we serve, certainly. We choose to offer respite services based out of an independent location to provide the individuals with disabilities that we are serving the opportunity to enjoy their time away from home. They can gain independence as they develop skills away from their primary caregiver, and even more importantly, they can build friendships and discover interests. Many of the families we serve can use their Medicaid funding, so this service for them requires no out-of-pocket expenses. The problem is waiting lists are long and our current homes are packed. We are going to build a new respite center on Lake Eliza. Unfortunately, what was planned to be a $5.9 million project when we began, we learned just today that with the increased construction costs, it will be coming in at $6.7 million. No question a result of the lingering effects of COVID. To date, we have raised just over $5 million, and we're asking for $1 million to assist us in raising the capital needed for the project. We also have many outdoor projects that we will continue raising funds for. One amazing amenity that will be included right away is an accessible treehouse. Next slide, please. And one more. We currently attract, one more. There we go. Amazing treehouse. We already impact families from far away as Lafayette for OE's current respite program. Developing a state-of-the-art facility will undoubtedly draw more people to Porter County to receive these unique services in an amazing setting. Thank you for your time today as we shared how a total investment of $2.5 million replaced lost revenue, invest in innovative programming, and help build a new respite center to serve a larger region. So you can see that an investment in OE as an investment in our county. Thank you. Next slide.
Thank you. Let's start off the questioning. You said that you're requesting $1.5 million, and that those monies would be allocated to the respite program project?
The $1 million would go towards respite. The 1.5 is for lost revenue and increased expenses.
So you're asking for $2.5 million?
That would be correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And those projects, how far along are you with those projects? Because you know we have time constraints on when this money needs to be encumbered and spent.
Each one of those projects are underway and near completion. I mean, respite is the only one that we haven't started yet, but we've raised $5 million. Groundbreaking is on the 25th of this month. So certainly we'll have this spent.
So if you receive this money, say, later this summer, you could have it encumbered by the end of 2024?
Without question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any questions by the board?
Have you received any other federal or state or city?
We have. As mentioned, yeah, we have received a variety of different funding.
Could you tell us?
Sure. Mark, can you elaborate?
Well,
Just so it's very clear and...
Yes, we did. We received funding from both the Bureau of Developmental Disabilities and the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, provider relief funding.
Mark, could you state your name?
I'm sorry, yeah, Mark Fisher.
Thank you.
Is that the first bureau you mentioned, is that a governmental
Yes, it is.
entity? Okay.
And we also did receive a PPP loan that was fully forgiven.
Can you tell us the amounts Can you break it down?
Sure. We received a PPP loan for $2,424,400.
That's a loan.
Correct.
Okay.
So you are having to pay that back?
It was forgiven.
Oh, it's forgiven.
It was forgiven, yes.
Okay.
Sorry. We received $654,177 to go towards some increased costs that we've had, covered overtime and hero pay and hazard pay. Then
Where
two.
did you get that from?
It's a combination of both the Centers for Medicaid and Medicare Services, the Provider Relief Fund, as well as the Bureau of Developmental Disability Services, state fund.
But those would not be considered pandemic funds or COVID funds?
Yes, they were.
Oh, they work, okay.
And then lastly, the, as in the handout here, the $2,224,000 that went towards lost revenue from those same funding sources before.
So that's captured in what you have?
Okay.
So it's in our
Yeah.
printout?
Yeah, the 2 million, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's not an addition to.
If the commissioners were to offer less than what you're requesting, would you accept it?
We would be grateful for any support, sir, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions from the board? Do you have any questions to us?
I do not. Just thank you again for your time and efforts that you're putting into this process.
That was a very nice presentation, and your organization does wonderful things, so
Thank you.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, the MAC Foundation. Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll start when you're ready.
Good evening. My name is Selena Weatherwax, and I'm president of the MAC Foundation. The MAC stands for, it's an abbreviation for the Multi-Agency Academic Cooperative. But let me just emphasize that that was no accident. The MAC stands and really exemplifies the late Fire Chief Clyde McMillan of the Gary Task Force. Chief McMillan is also the founder of Task Force HIPS, one of our largest employers here in Porter County. And so when his son Stuart decided that he wanted to honor his father, he thought that what better way to do it than with a training facility right here in Porter County. And so we got busy and started organizing what you'll hear more about today. But each of us here today have either been directly impacted or know of someone that has had to rely on the assistance of a first responder. These are the community leaders that we don't think about on a day-to-day basis. These are our firefighters, our police officers, and our EMS professionals. I'm here this evening in advocacy of these courageous men and women, and to implore you to join us in championing them by taking their training to the next level with a one-time $3.3 million matching fund appropriation. The COVID-19 pandemic, as few other times in our history have demonstrated, relied specifically on our frontline workers, in our case, our first responders. The MAC stepped up and made sure that we did everything possible to keep our doors open. Next slide. Next slide, Kurt. This is where we started just in 2016. So to give you an idea, we had an old pole barn with gravel floors, and the team that stepped up started organizing and coordinating ways in which we could develop a training tower at the time. That training tower has now evolved to a 22-acre campus within the Montdale Industrial Park. I mentioned Task Force Tips earlier as one of our key partners, but we also have other significant partners within the industrial park, including NIPSCO, Hoosier, Fire Equipment, and Amicus Rescue Systems. The facility itself serves all the Porter County first responders. So we are seeing folks from not only the career level, but also the volunteer departments, as well as different various community groups training on our campus. Next slide. Here's a general listing of all the different agencies. You have also this PowerPoint in your packet, so it's probably easier for you to read and see this slide. We also have, really, quite frankly, to our surprise, have brought in folks from all different agencies, including FBI. Today we had the Marshal Service training at the MAC, as well as the different railroad police departments, and of course all our neighboring volunteer departments as well. I note this because most of these agencies are bringing agents not only from outside of Porter County, so in terms of economic development, they're supporting our local restaurants, staying in hotels, but many of them are also staying here or live here, so Porter County is home. So this very diverse mix of first responders is something that really has taken us by surprise quite a bit. Our service area, next slide. Our service area, although is the Northwest Indiana community, we have also seen an uptick in folks, as I referenced, from different agencies. But during the pandemic, we also saw an increased need for the facility. And we can only attribute that to the fact that there was nothing in place like it. So these men and women were expected to show up, deliver, but training was also very much at the helm of it all. They needed to be better trained, better prepared for what this pandemic brought to them. And so the MAC made sure that we had complete access to them. Currently, the facility is open 24/7, so we see folks come in during their midnight shifts to train there. We see folks coming nights and weekends. It doesn't matter for us. We've issued them key fobs, and so they come and go. But nevertheless, the hardship really came in the next slide, where we saw this great uptick in the training hours. We saw a decline. We feel that we would have been where we're at today much faster if indeed the pandemic wouldn't have hit. As a result of that, we've also received a negative impact in our revenue generation. Not only in programming dollars that were lost, but also in our ability to offer different community awareness events, as well as implementing a fee structure model. That's something that we've been talking about for quite some time. Again, based on the mission that we wanting to make sure that we had given them complete access to our facilities. So the economic harm was something that severely impacted our growth in 2019, at the tail end of 2019, and certainly during 2012 and 2020, excuse me. And that also includes a capital campaign that we launched of over $2 million, a very ambitious plan that was clearly, taken sideways because of the pandemic, and we were unable to achieve those goals. But since 2016, we have invested over $8 million at the MAC campus, and this includes the construction and development of what many have referred to as the first public-private partnership of public safety that our state has ever seen, because the unique model of the MAC is that we serve them all. Unlike other facilities that you visit anywhere around the state, you see fire on one side, police on the other. Our shared spaces allow not only for increased communication, but increased collaboration as a result of just having the facilities in place. We have been able to successfully leverage different funds throughout the community. So because we are a public charity, we proactively fundraise every day. We also proactively work towards securing our annual sustainability, which is the #1 strategic imperative for the MAC. And that includes us also putting different processes in place to achieve that. This past year, we have brought on 2 new employees specifically focused on this revenue generation piece, and quite frankly, it's a direct result of the impact that we had during the pandemic. But nevertheless, we are moving forward. This initiative is a beacon of collaboration and progression throughout Northwest Indiana, contradicting oftentimes the negative perceptions that we are given in this part of the state. We have also been very mindful of the men and women we serve, and that includes the design of our facilities. The idea is for these men and women to show up with just their bunker gear or just show up themselves. We offer them all the equipment that they may need. We offer them all the tools they may need and all the consumables that they may need for their training. And we do this at no cost to them or to their organization, something that Porter County as government could never have done on their own. And so we want to be sure that we continue to be a strong partner in all of this. The number of hours that we have seen since the MAC started exceeds over 350,000 direct training hours. So if we begin to try to quantify that, it's quite a significant cost savings, as well as a strong ROI for you as a committee with the investment of these funds. Next slide, Kurt. So the blue shows our current developed campus. The pink is the next phase that we are going into. The overall map shows our master plan for the future, including a proposed project that we have to bring our law enforcement training academy to relocate to Porter County. We also have lots of ambitious ideas, including a shooting range, an indoor shooting range here in the future. But the next phase beyond, next slide.
5 minutes remaining.
Thanks. Includes this residential tactical village. The residential tactical village and its funding pieces are well on their way now. We expect to break ground as early, actually, this week, Wednesday, we have a groundbreaking ceremony. You have invitations in your packets. But nevertheless, we have done a very good job at the MAC addressing what a first responder experiences once they're inside a structure. We have not done such a good job in addressing what happens before they arrive on scene. This residential tactical village addresses that specific need. So back to the increased communication with not only their peers and colleagues, but also with dispatch on the other end. This also is space, training space for law enforcement as well as firefighters. So again, back to us thinking in a very collaborative way, this is a major piece of that. Here's another image of the residential tactical village. We use containers quite often on the campus because the training is very forceful at times, and so bricks and mortar isn't something that really works for us. It's a very cost-effective way of putting up our training structures. The proposal that you have before you also includes the Bedford Falls Streetscape Building. This is an indoor training facility very similar to what you would experience in a downtown Valparaiso, downtown Portage, or Chesterton. The idea here is to also get this project off the ground within this next year. We'd have no issue making sure that we met the July 1st, 2024 deadline. We have contracts in place to get the first phase, which is the residential tactical village, off the ground now, and hopefully be done by the end of August of this year. And so the next phase is going to be referred to as Bedford Falls, USA, which is, again, an indoor training facility. I see you're smiling. You know what movie that's from, right? And there's meaning behind that as well. But nevertheless, the MAC is growing. The MAC is serving a need for first responders unlike we've ever seen before. And I believe that all of you share in that commitment as well. Another example is something that we never expected that has actually shown tremendous success is a partnership that we've established with the Porter County Career and Technical Center. We have students coming from 7 different high schools on Monday through Friday reporting to the MAC campus, and they're going through the same curriculum as a career firefighter or a volunteer firefighter would pursue, and come out with the same certifications at the end of the school year. In addition to that, they receive 15 dual credit hours from Ivy Tech. The next phase, something that we started today at the MAC, is EMT certification training. So as you can imagine, we can graduate these high school kids with full firefighting certifications and then immediately have them jump into an EMT program. So we have a full, well-rounded first responder ready to serve our communities. As a result of our program, the Valparaiso Fire Department has lowered their hiring age from 21 to 18, and currently has 3 of our graduates on their staff. Each of us, every single day, have choices to make. At the MAC, our choice is to champion the support that first responders need and make moral decisions to dedicate, equip, and prepare them for the call of duty. Today, I'm asking you, again, to champion these men and women who wake up every day thinking about how to positively impact the life of others. And so investing in the training of these heroes, is investing in the over 170,000 Porter County residents. So with that being said, I'm happy to take any questions that you may have or address any lingering thoughts.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right off, a couple of real quick. If we were to offer you less, would you receive it?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, here's my thoughts on it. I personally feel, and having been, had the, fortunately, unfortunately, had the opportunity to serve as a county commissioner during the pandemic, noticed firsthand, I think Mike Brickner can speak on this himself, but of just who wasn't staying home, who could not stay home, and who was dealing with the pandemic in the businesses, in the homes, on the street, in our county jail, and it was all first responders. I, for one, if it were up to me, would give you all $3.3 million. Because I can't honestly think of a better way to spend this money for that purpose. Because we found out, because there's no playbook on how to manage a pandemic, thank God the first responders were there. Because I can't imagine if that had fallen apart where we'd be today, anywhere in the country. So that's my feeling. So.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Really only, just to make a statement, it's not really well, I do have one question. There's no doubt that our first responders are they're the most visible form of government in any community. Police, fire, EMS, probably one of our most high liability agencies in a city, county, or government or town. And training is so essential. I think more important now than when I served at the police department. So first of all, excellent presentation. I commend what you're doing there. My question is Bedford Falls. What, is that etched in stone, or you said there's a meaning behind that?
Kurt, can you go to the next slide? So there is actually a meaning. So the movie It's a Wonderful Life is also Stuart McMillan's favorite movie. And for years, he painfully encourages me to watch it multiple times during the holidays. And one day, we visited a DuPage College of Illinois. And if you look in your packet, you'll see the pictures of the DuPage College facility that we will mimic here in Porter County. And so it just occurred to me that Bedford Falls was a very appropriate naming of this space. But other than that, there isn't any real reason.
Very good.
Ruth?
I have a question.
Yes.
In looking through your first application that we had already, you have a preliminary budget, and you have a lot of amounts of money that say whether it's committed, received, or pending, and a lot of them are pending. And I was wondering how, have you received any of those that are marked pending? And where are you at with that, and how sure of a thing is pending?
Yeah. Well, as any nonprofit executive will share with you, the fundraising piece and the annual sustainability piece is something that is a moving target, right? Where every day it changes. I can tell you that I feel very confident that we will secure the $3.3 million matching funds. This is not something that we have just started working on. This is something that I've been having conversations with a number of local funders and philanthropists for the past 6, maybe even 8 months. So I can't disclose whether or not who they are specifically, but I can assure you that the matching funds will be there, will be in place.
And so is this $50,000 from the city of Valpo, is that ARPA funds?
So we were one of 7 nonprofit organizations that were chosen as part of the ARPA funds process for the city. Yes, we have not received it, but we did, like the 2 other organizations that presented today before me, were indeed told that they were selected. Our piece of the ARPA $50,000 is going towards the infrastructure on the site, so increase water mains and adding the sewage, or increasing the number of hydrants that we would have on the property for training, as well as extending our sewage line. So we will not receive that in cash. That will be more of a gift in kind that the city will.
So have you received any other governmental funding, due to COVID?
We received $14,000 in a PPP loan that was forgiven. But no, that is the only other piece.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So it's pretty much safe to say that through the course of any year that with our agencies here in Porter County, that you save hundreds of thousands of dollars, they do, by sending them over here instead of sending them to, say, Plainfield or Indianapolis or Ohio, that they can get that training here instead of having to go out of area.
That's a correct assessment, yes.
I would certainly think so. Well, it was a wonderful, any other questions? Wonderful presentation. Do you have any questions? Any questions of us, Selena?
No, but I do want to thank you because, I've had the privilege of sitting through these different meetings that you've had, and gosh, your patience is pretty impressive to me.
Well, we're getting paid really well.
Are you? In that case? No, but thank you for doing your due diligence too. I know that's important to do, and you've been at it.
Thank you for doing what you all do. So thank you.
Appreciate it.
Well, that concludes our presentations for the evening. We do have set aside some time for public comment. If anybody would like to make a comment on any of the presentations, the only thing I ask you is please don't ask the presenters a question. You can ask us, but no questions? That's great. That means we've done our job. Everybody's clear on this, that what they, okay. Well, with that, does the board have any board members have any comment, question, nothing? All right, that concludes our meeting. Thank you very much.